Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're brand new to PUBG, welcome to the Battlegrounds. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you my tips and tricks, like a rapid fire list of what I think new players should start with in PUBG, some things that you need to know before you get started, and if you're a returning player, maybe just a refresher on some things you might have forgotten or just never knew about. Now, I try to put these in order from what you would experience first in the game, but they are in no particular order, so I'll put timestamps in the description below. If you want to skip to any of them, feel free to go ahead and do so. Number one, today's the 11th, so the PUBG servers aren't actually live until tomorrow on the 12th, which is when you should be watching this video, and by then, you're going to have access to a brand new tutorial mode for PUBG. Now, this is really useful for brand new players. It gives you all the basic fundamentals of PUBG, excluding a couple things, but it shows you how to do the basic movements, how to vault, how to jump, how to crouch prone, all that kind of good stuff, how to loot, how to heal, how to revive teammates, how to use grenades, like all of the basic fundamentals, which is really, really useful, obviously. What it doesn't touch on, however, are things like the red zone, which you want to avoid in PUBG, the blue zone, which you take damage if you're in it, and the longer the game goes on, the more damage the blue zone does. And then also in terms of like looting and healing, it doesn't really give you specific tips and tricks on those mechanics, but I do have ultimate PUBG guides that go over all of those different things. I'll be linking a number of videos that I reference in today's list down in the description or in the top of your screen. Feel free to click that and go watch those. The first I'll mention is an ultimate healing guide for PUBG, where I go over all the basics of different med kits down to painkillers, syringes, and energy drinks, how many you should keep in your inventory, what are the uses and benefits of each, and why you should not or should have some in your inventory. Now, the other guide is going to be about looting. PUBG is going to be a little bit different from your traditional BR, like say Warzone, for instance, because it actually has a whole tab loot menu where you don't have to just look at the ground and hit F to pick up items. You can open up a tab loot menu and drag and drop items, which are much faster. So I have a guide on the best ways to loot, the fastest ways to loot, and what kind of hotkeys and keybinds you should be using. So go check that out if you're not familiar yourself. After you complete the tutorial mode, I would recommend jumping into the AI training match. Now, the AI training match can only be playing 10 times per account. So it's a you versus 99 bot experience in PUBG, where you can do the entire PUBG experience from the plane to the in-game chicken dinner with no interference of real players. So it's really useful to get your bearings straight and just kind of get familiar with the typical flow of PUBG. Also, for the tutorial and the AI training match, really recommend doing those even if you're an existing or returning player, because there's going to be some exclusive skins and unlockables that you can get by completing those daily missions associated with those two modes. So don't sleep on those. Now, a top tip for what I start with every day in PUBG is I go to the arcade tab and I jump into a team deathmatch mode. I do at least 1 or 2 team deathmatch modes every day before I actually start my games. And it's basically a way that you can kind of get some basic aim training for the day. Get your sensitivities dialed in, figure out which guns you want to use that day, or if you want to practice with any specific weapons, this is a great way to jump in, because it's I think it's like a 10 versus 10 or 15 versus 15 timed deathmatch, and it's just rapid fire. You just spawn, go, spawn, go, spawn, go. So it's a way to get in and out without having to go loot, find a weapon, find a target. Really recommend doing that, again, daily before you actually get your Battle Royale experience going for that day. Okay, next up, when you actually start your first game in PUBG, if you're brand new, I would highly recommend practicing with these two weapons, the SCAR and the UMP. The SCAR is a 5.56 assault rifle, and the UMP is a 45 caliber SMG. Those are going to be two of the best early starting weapons because they're a little bit slower rate of fire. They're easier to control if you don't have all the attachments, and they still deal really good damage and can kill enemies 1 to 5 shots, depending on where you hit your target and that sort of stuff. So highly recommend starting with those if you're unfamiliar with PUBG's recoil system, because if you're a brand new player, you're going to see very quickly PUBG is a very unique recoil system. The gunplay is one of the best, if not the best, of any Battle Royale I've ever played. And I'm sure you've heard that sentiment before. And even more so, if you're coming from console, you're going to learn quickly that there is no aim assist in PUBG, 0. So this is not a Warzone Apex experience. You really have to learn how to hit your shots, which is going to be very rewarding, but it can be a little daunting up front. So I recommend starting with those items, or those weapons rather. Now, when you start with those items, you might be wondering, okay, what about after I master those weapons? What weapon should I go to next? Well, I have a weapons ranked tier list that I made about a year ago, I guess, maybe not quite that long. I'll link up top of your screen or down below. And I basically rank all the weapons from top to bottom, from S down to, shit water weapons of what you should and shouldn't pick up. And then I separate them in their own categories. Like if you're looking at assault rifles only, SMGs only, sniper rifles, etc. So go check that out if you're interested in learning about all the weapons in PUBG and where I think they should land. All right, staying on topic with weapons, this is probably the most important tip I can put in this video is attachments make a world of a difference in PUBG. Every attachment is unique in the sense that it changes different variables of your particular weapon. Some attachments affect the weapon's horizontal recoil, vertical recoil, a combination of both. Some of them make you ADS, aim down sights faster. Some of them tighten your bullet spread. Some of them hide your flashes altogether. And some of them reduce your sniper rifle recoil. So there's a number of different variety of attachments you can use in PUBG. And that can be very overwhelming at first, but I've made an ultimate attachments guide where I go over literally every attachment in PUBG, from the grips to the muzzles to the tack stocks, the bullet loops, cheek pads, all that kind of stuff. And I show you when you should use which attachments and why. So go check that video out up below or down in the description. Highly recommend you go check that guide out because it's really going to help you when you pick up your favorite weapon to know which attachments you want in which scenario. All right, next let's talk about drop location, because that's very important of how you start your match, how the flow of the game is going to progress. Again, PUBG is going to be different from your traditional BRs that you might be used to if you're coming from Warzone or Apex or something like that. PUBG does not tell you where the safe zone, where the circle is right when you drop. So you just have the entire map to choose from according to the plane path. I would typically recommend don't fly further than, say, 2,000 meters at most from any particular plane path. And 2,000 meters is two of the big squares. So all the small squares are 100 meters, and then the big squares are 1,000 meters. So I would never recommend flying past 2,000 meters. Really, 1,000 to 1,500 is kind of like your safe mark. If you want to go past that, I would recommend dropping down vertical quickly, getting a vehicle, and then using that vehicle to go and explore those outer areas. Because if you drop too far away from the center of the map, you're going to run the risk of when that first safe zone does show up, which isn't for a few minutes after you drop, it might be way on the other side of the map. And if you happen to not have a vehicle, you're going to be in a lot of trouble if you can't get to that safe zone quickly. And more on that later. Now, speaking of the safe zone, I would also recommend that you rotate early and don't wait last minute as the circle starts to close before you make your move, for a number of reasons. Number one, there aren't vehicles everywhere. They do have some hard spawns, but it is more randomized than anything. So if you happen to wait until the circle is almost on top of you and your team to start looking for a vehicle, it might be too late. Then you're going to be running in the blue zone, wasting health, having to use meds, assuming you found enough meds for you and your team. So avoid that by rotating early. In addition, if you rotate early, you're going to avoid getting killed during your rotation, or you're going to reduce the likelihood, I should say. If you rotate late, other teams are likely already going to be set up inside of the new safe zone, waiting for people like you to rotate in on vehicles or on foot. And you're going to obviously be seen or heard way faster because they're going to be in their cover, in their compounds, and can hear you run up or can see you driving up from a far way away and kind of get a game plan on how to deal with you if you decide to crash their compound because you don't even know they're there. So make sure to take note of that. And then on touching the blue zone very briefly, the blue zone in PUBG is going to deal damage from phase 1 all the way to phase 9 or 10. The latest phase you'll typically get to is like phase 6 or phase 7, but the blue zone starts to chunk at about phase 4. So phase 1, phase 2, even phase 3, as long as you have a lot of boosts, adrenaline syringes, painkillers, energy drinks, bandages, etc., you can deal with the blue zone. It's not that big of an issue to stay inside of it and heal as you're running. But phase 4, phase 5, phase 6, it's almost impossible to survive for more than 30 seconds in the blue zone at that point. So just be warned about that and plan accordingly. Okay, now in terms of looting for PUBG, you are going to have a limited amount of space. You have level 1, level 2, and level 3 backpacks available. Obviously, the higher the level, the more stuff you can hold inside of it. So you're going to have to loot smart if you don't have a full level 3 where you can just shove everything that you want in there. So here's just a general rule of thumb of what I would carry. 3 to 5 first aids, 5 bandages, only 1 painkiller because you can't get to full health without one of those if you've taken damage. More on that in a sec. about 4 to 5 energy drinks, 2 to 3 frag grenades at most. Any more than that, you're going to waste a lot of your inventory space because they take up a lot of space. 2 smoke grenades are very useful for team games. If you're in squads, I might even recommend sacrificing 1 or 2 frag grenades for more smoke grenades because they're really useful in rotating or providing your team cover while you revive them. 1 to 2 stun grenades, 1 to 2 Molotovs. Molotovs are really good for countering a smoke grenade. So if an enemy team throws a smoke to revive their teammate, you have a Molotov and you can throw it in that smoke. That's going to be really useful. Stun grenades are honestly more offensive than defensive. So if you find yourself playing a little bit safer, maybe don't worry about carrying so many of those. And as far as ammunition, I usually recommend 150 to 200 rounds over whatever's in your magazine. So let's say you have an M4 and you have 40 bullets in the magazine. If you have 40/150, you should have plenty of ammunition, unless obviously you're the kind of squad who's just going to be shooting at absolutely everything. But typical rule of thumb, that's more than enough ammo to survive into your next gunfight, which if you win the gunfight, you're going to get ammo from those bodies anyway. And the last couple items are pretty important. So obviously you have melee weapons in PUBG, but always grab a butt pan if you can. The butt pan, you're going to want to equip it in your inventory, because when it's on your player's inventory on the belt, it's going to be able to block gunshots from the rear or from the side. So a very, very useful item, and it can never get destroyed. And then PUBG's added a couple of new items recently. So they have the M79 smoke grenade launcher, which is a single-handed sidearm that you can shoot smoke grenades very far distances. So highly recommend having that for team games to smoke your teammates if they get knocked, or just to give them cover, or to smoke an enemy team to screen their vision so they can't easily shoot you. Very useful item. You're going to see the Panzerfaust in some maps and the mortar grenade launcher. Those are kind of situational items. You can pick them up and have some fun with them, but not really necessary. Not to mention they both take up a primary weapon slot, so it's a big sacrifice there. And they're single use only, of course. And then also the brand new tactical gear for PUBG. Now, I've made a couple of videos recently showing you exactly what the tactical gear is, how to use it, what it's useful for. That's the EMT medic kit and the new UAV drone. Those are really, really useful items in team games. They're kind of useful in duos, and they become even less useful in solos unless you play a certain way. So I would recommend go to watch those videos, learn how those items are used or best used, and see if it fits your particular playstyle. All right, now another tip is using sound to your advantage. PUBG is a game where it's really, really extremely beneficial to hear your enemy before you see your enemy. If you're in a close quarter combat situation, you're in the same building as your enemies, or you're 1 or 2 compounds over, a lot of the times you're going to hear them before you see them, whether it's opening doors, breaking glass, even just footsteps are very noticeable in PUBG. And one thing a lot of people forget about PUBG is everything your character does makes small audio changes that you or your enemies can hear, which can give away your position or give away theirs. A couple of examples would be something like swapping weapons. Your character makes a ruffling noise when they swap weapons. Even aiming down the sight of your weapon to scope in makes a slight audio noise, and the enemy can hear that if they're paying attention. Pulling out a grenade, popping the pin on the grenade, doing a healing mechanic, the enemies can hear all those different things going on. So if you have an experienced enemy and they hear you do a certain audio cue, they might know they have the upper hand to push you at that moment. So it's really important to keep that in mind when you're in those kind of close range scenarios. Now, also on audio, I have a full PUBG sound guide that I'll link again up above or down in the description below, which is going to help you dial in your audio to hear enemies better, hear footsteps better, and also make your sounds not so deafening, because that's one of the bad things about PUBG is that some of the sounds are so high pitched that you have to have the sounds turned up to hear low footsteps, but then you have gunshots that will really deafen you if you're not careful. So I'd recommend go watching that video, choose which sound option fits you the best, and use that to really enhance your audio experience. Now, on the topic of settings, I have an ultimate PUBG settings guide, which goes over all the visual performance improvements you can make in PUBG that'll give you the best visuals and the best FPS, because we all know frames win games, right? So in PUBG, there's a number of different settings that you can adjust from very low up to ultra. I go over all those different settings and I show you how much they can improve your game or they can impact your performance. And that'll help you really dial in the settings for your particular rig. Like if you have a super expensive computer, you have a little more room to play. If you have a lower end PC, well, there's some settings you're just going to want to turn off for sure. So go check that out. That'll help you dial those in. All right, now my last in-game tip for you today is going to be prioritize your position, especially when you're in like a top 10 situation, when there's only a number of players or a small number of teams left fighting it out. What you don't want to do is be the first team to shoot and give away your position, because then you're going to have all eyes on you. Teams are going to know where you're at in the map and where to expect you to be rotating to next. So what I would highly recommend doing is play for positioning first, locate the next safe zone, have the better cover, and wait for the other teams to start their engagement so that you can choose whether or not it's beneficial to engage or hold off and let those teams fight it out and then try to clean up the aftermath. Now, if you do decide to get involved early, just know that PUBG is a slower paced game than other BRs, so the players don't move as fast, and unless they have a vehicle, it might take them a little bit of time to get to your position, but trust me, they're coming. So always be ready for that third-party shot. If you can't finish your fight in, say, 10 to 15 seconds at most, be ready to throw yourself smoke grenades and find cover to re-engage. If you stay too long in that fight, it's inevitable you're going to get third-partied. All right, now my last tip is going to be when you're out of your Battle Royale match, you're back into the PUBG UI. There's a number of things you can do to kind of customize your experience, track your progression, those sorts of things. So here's just the basics. You have two forms of currency in PUBG. You have battle points, which are free currency that you earn just by playing the game and completing daily missions. Then you have G-Coin. I don't want to flick you off. You have G-Coin. I should have used another finger. You have G-Coin that is purchasable with real money in the game, and that G-Coin is then used to buy the higher tiered skins for your weapons and for your character, of course, and your vehicle skins, all that kind of good stuff. There are free ways to get both. I have videos detailing how to get free G-Coin, how to get more BP, and what you can actually use your BP on, and how you can buy and sell skins in the Steam store. So all that kind of stuff, I'll link down below or in the top right of your screen. And of course, if you guys do want to support the channel for free, use creator appreciation code CDome. That's at the bottom in the PUBG store. You click on that, it'll bring you to PUBG's website. You link your PUBG email or link your account with your email, and you can select your favorite PUBG partner. My code is CDome. So I would appreciate you guys did that. It does help us out on every purchase that you make. All right, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with a buddy. It really does help the channel get some exposure and get some growth out there. If you're a returning player and you saw that I left out some key tips that new players need to know, leave that in the comments below for sure. Get subscribed if you haven't already done so. We've got a ton of PUBG tips and tricks here. I have an ultimate PUBG guide series, a whole playlist of 20 videos going over everything you need to know about PUBG. So go check that out. And lastly, of course, we stream on Twitch 4 days a week. We're on Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, and Friday. But Friday is community night. So if you want to game with me or game with our squads, we do PUBG squads all night Friday night. It's a blast. So come hang out, come check us out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Peace.